Good morning. Coming to you from my campsite this morning. Thought I'd switch things up on this beautiful morning. Just didn't want to be inside. The lighting's not great, but we'll make do. And yes, that is a mini fridge in the background. So camping, but camping in style. So today we're going to continue on our theme of nature, and we're going to talk more about water. Now, I've started a lot of the lessons on water saying how many people don't have it. They have to walk many miles, especially women, children, walking many miles to go collect their water, and how much that is a problem. And when you're thinking about that, you're probably thinking about other countries, right? And in fact, in the US, there's probably not that many places where people have to walk many miles to get water every day. So we're very lucky in that sense. But water is still a big issue here in the United States too. As I've touched on a little bit in previous lessons, it can particularly become a problem, and of course in drier places. And here in Maine, things are pretty damp, especially of late. It's actually nice to see the sun because it's been so foggy and rainy of late. There's a pretty good amount of water in the northeast region of our country, but out west, it's way more of a problem because you have deserts and there's less water, and people fight over what water that is there, particularly for people use it for these hydro dams for electricity. There's farmers, big farms using it to irrigate their fields for agriculture. There's people needing to drink water, and people wanting to recreate on water. And it's become in the Klamath Basin, which is in Oregon, it's been a really big conflict for quite a while about water rights and who owns the water. If you own a piece of land, do you own the stream flowing through it? Do you own that water? Well, how can you? Because it doesn't start out on your land and it passes through your land. So water comes and goes. Who owns it? Does anyone own it, or does it belong to all of us? If nobody owns it, how do you decide who gets to use it when there's lots of people that need that water? I actually did a paper back 15 years ago now, back at College of the Atlantic, about the water rights to the Klamath Basin. And it was not a new thing then, and it's still going on. 15 years later, it's still a problem there. So the Klamath Basin stretches from southern Oregon into California, and it covers more than 12,000 square miles. It's a pretty big area. It's about the size of the state of Maryland. And the Klamath River runs through the basin. It's one of the few rivers in the country that flows west into the Pacific Ocean. The population in the basin is about a little over 100,000 people, with most concentrated in the upper areas where there's lots of agriculture. Klamath Falls, Oregon, is the basin's largest city with about 28 people, and 4 Native American tribes own land in the basin, and 2/3 of the land in the basin is owned by the federal government, so quite a bit of it. The Klamath Basin supports family farming and ranchers, and also one of the largest commercial salmon fisheries in the country. The area is home to the Karuk, the Klamath, the Hupa, and the Yurok tribes, and all of these tribes have traditionally fished in the Klamath River. And they continue to fish in the Klamath River today, both as a cultural tradition and for subsistence, in order to survive. So they live off the fish, and it's also their cultural tradition. The U.S. Department of the Interior has designated the Klamath Basin as a treasured landscape because it's home to 6 wildlife refuges that provide habitat, important wetland habitat for waterfowl and migratory birds. And it's estimated to be a critical stop for 80% of the migratory birds along the Pacific Flyway, including bald eagles and sandhill cranes. It also provides spawning ground for many fish populations. The Klamath Estuary is one of the few along the west coast that hasn't been developed. So you can see it's really important ecologically for wildlife too. It's also the site of a number of hydroelectric dams, including 4 dams owned by this company, Pacific Corp Power Company. So water rights have long been an issue in this area, as you can imagine, because there's all these different people that need it and critters that need it. So there's the agricultural interest, the farmers that need water for irrigation. There's the Native American tribes that have commercial fishing interests and cultural interests. And the commercial fishing interests need water levels to remain high, right, as do the tribes, in order to support healthy fish populations and provide spawning grounds for fish like salmon. So the water rights balance is very precarious. And there's also been major droughts in recent years. So this provides a problem both for those who want to get fish from the rivers and for the agriculture and the farmers who want to take water from the river. So in 2010, some water rights agreements were signed and to help reduce some of this conflict. And groups that often disagreed on issues relating to water rights, including the farmers, the fishermen, the Native Americans, they worked together to agree on a plan to restore the Klamath Basin. And they added Pacific Corp, who owns the dams, into this process. But there's still ongoing issues there because the approval of the dams requires approval by Congress, and it's still quite a problem. But one thing that's exciting is that a new potential energy source in the region might help alleviate some of the concerns about power from loss of the dams. So a new technology called geothermal energy is being proposed for the area, and a new geothermal power plant is proposed for the Klamath River Basin. And that would be an alternative source of energy, which would make it easier to remove the dam, so there would be more water for the fish, for the farmers, and for the Native American tribes. But the crisis there continues to go on because you have all these different competing interests going after the same bit of water, and there's just not enough of it. So I'm going to read to you a story from Haiti, which I was pleased when I saw this story. I'm working on a mapping project right now with my day job that's mapping where I'm mapping out access to healthcare, especially access to healthcare for pregnant women across Haiti. So I've been had my eye on Haiti quite a bit of late, and I was excited to come across this tale. And it's called Maboya, Chief of the Well. To whom does the water belong? There was once a drought in the country. The streams dried up and the wells went dry. God saw there was no place for the animals to drink. God provided a well with the condition that it must be taken care of so all may use it. God said, "You'll have to take good care of my well. One of you will have to be the caretaker. The caretaker will stay by the well at all times to see that no one abuses it or makes it dirty." Maboya, the lizard, spoke up, saying, "I will be the caretaker." God looked at all the animals. God said at last, "Maboya, the lizard, will be the caretaker. The well is now over there in the mangrove grove." The other animals went away. Maboya went directly to the well. When the other animals began to come back for water, Maboya challenged them. First the cow came to drink. The lizard sang out in a big voice, "Who is it? Who is it? Who is walking in my grove?" The cow replied, "It is I, the cow. I am coming for water." Maboya called back, "Go away! This is God's grove and the well is dry." So the cow went away and suffered from thirst. Then the horse came, and Maboya challenged him, saying, "Who is walking in my grove?" This horse answered, "I am the horse, and I am coming for water." And Maboya called back, "Go away! This is God's grove, and the well is dry." So the horse went away, and he too suffered from thirst. Other animals came to the well, and the lizard challenged all of them the same way, saying, "Go away! This is God's grove, and the well is dry." So the animals went away and suffered much because they had no water to drink. God saw all this suffering going on and said, I gave the animals a well to drink from, but they are all dying of thirst. What is the matter? And God went to the well. When the lizard heard footsteps, she called out, Who is it? Who is it? Who is walking in my grove? God answered, It is I, God. I am coming for water. And Maboya said, Go away, God. The well is dry. God was very angry and said once more, It is I, God, coming for water. And the lizard called back, Go away, God. The well is dry. God said no more to the lizard, and sent for the animals to come to the well, and said, You came to me because you were thirsty, and I gave you a well. I made Maboya the caretaker, but she gave no thought to the suffering creatures all around her. If one has a banana tree in their garden, it is theirs. If one has a cotton tree in their garden, it is theirs. But if one has a well in the garden, only the hole in the ground belongs to that one. The water is God's and belongs to all creatures. And it is a saying among the people now, The hole in the ground is yours, the water is God's. So that is the story. And what mistake did Maboya make? He was being sort of greedy, right? Or she was being greedy. The lizard was a she. She was being greedy, and that she was just the caretaker of the water, but she acted like it was all hers and wouldn't let anyone else drink from it. Now think about why someone might feel greedy. Have you ever felt greedy, not wanted to share? Well, sometimes greed is really a fear that we might run out of something and that you won't have enough of it in the future. So maybe that's how Maboya felt. Think about the commercial fishermen in the Klamath Basin. It might have been seen, or the agricultural interests and the farmers there who wanted to use the water to irrigate their farms. That might be seen as greedy by some of the fishermen, but these farmers were really scared that they weren't going to have enough water to water their crops, and they wouldn't be able to grow their crops, they wouldn't be able to sell them and have money to survive. So sometimes what can seem like greed can actually be based on fear. And maybe there was something else going on with Maboya. Maybe it wasn't greed that caused her to withhold water from the other animals, but maybe she thought she was special because she was appointed as the caretaker, so she didn't feel like she had to share it with others. Or maybe she just didn't think they were really thirsty. So water it's very complicated in terms because it flows, it moves around. Land, we can put lines in the land, although sometimes those lines aren't clear, and it's not clear who owns some of the land, or those lines are put down when someone else has already used that land, and all of a sudden someone says, I own this land, you can't be here anymore, like with Native Americans, right? And all of a sudden it's like, okay, legally, this person owns this land, but it was being used for thousands of years by others first. So land can get complicated too. But water is even more complicated because it moves and it flows. And you might have water running across your property or a river flowing through a basin, and lots of people want to use that water. So, and it belongs to everyone. So how do you fairly share it, especially when you have drought and there's not enough of it, or that so many people want to use it that there's not enough to go around? It can be very complicated how we share water, because in the end, it belongs to us all. So that is it, today's video from the campsite. Have a great week. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. See you next time.